AJ, thank you for joining us today. I'd like to start by having you introduce yourself as far as like, how are you involved at the church? Like what are your passions as far as ministry work goes and your calling? And then also tell us a little bit about your background, like your profession. What do you do for work?
So my name's AJ Bustanmante. I work in outreach at Westside Community Church, and my profession is communications.
Okay.
Yep, I implement communication systems with small to mid-sized companies, and it's a lot of fun.
Let me ask you a question. Where were you, and what place were you at before Jesus came and sought you out and you became a believer? Where were you at before that happened in your life?
I was in this thing called a rut. It's very messy. It's very messy. It was not pleasant at all. Not knowing Jesus, I just found myself in the wrong company a lot of the time, and with that association, you tend to make decisions that aren't considered to be, wise, without a blueprint like what we call the Bible.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you can kind of go down those roads and find yourself in a position just in life that that no one wants to be in. So real dark past.
Thank you for sharing that. What changed? What happened in order for you to cause you to commit to your convictions and following Jesus and changing? Because we obviously don't see that anymore. If you're telling me that you're in the dark, then I wouldn't see that, because you see you're a light. You shine bright, man, and you make a impact and an influence for God's kingdom. I know what you're doing. So, what changed? We'd like to know a little bit about that.
Well, I think a man can only take so much, and I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And enough wasn't enough, and I just wanted to do better. I just wanted to be better.
Yeah.
And after so many pitfalls, I was kind of in that scenario where you're just on your knees, silent prayers in the dark, just by yourself. Like, what am I gonna do? And then I met some people, some very successful people that really changed things for me through a friend of mine, and through different association. They really opened my eyes to what could be. And so I just got around the right association, and through that learned to change. And then they kept planting seeds about success, but their idea of success is not just financial gain, which is actually what I was looking primarily at. Their idea of prosperity as a whole came from the Word. So they would feed me these books. Yeah, they'd feed me these books. And each one of them was a success book, but that book always had God in it.
Wow.
And I come from a place where my, machismo, it's like, what's this guy's angle at? But, and so I called him out on it. Hey, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And then he just hit me right between the eyes with it. I'll never forget it. He says, if you really want to prosper, you need to get your spiritual alignment right first.
Yeah.
And that's what changed it for me is hearing someone that I respect, the right association. For starters, call me out, because I respect that just as a person. Yeah. But also have the courage to share with me those truths, those deep personal truths. That changed everything for me.
Wow. Association. Yeah. Association. I can relate. I can relate big time. It's like they say, you are who you associate with, right? That's who you become. You pick up habits from those people. I love that. How are you currently taking ownership of your daily spiritual habits, of getting outside of your comfort zone? How are you telling other people about Jesus?
So my daily habits, for starters, they have changed drastically through my spiritual growth, because I think a lot of the time, hey Dave, what's going on, buddy? What's going on? Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. But yeah, I think sometimes you're not really sure what to do, right? And you got so much that is gonna take place in a day, but like, how do I attack this, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to make the shift thanks to a good friend of mine. She just bought me a really nice Bible and inscribed and everything, right? Oh, wow. And so I started with the Word. Yeah, I started with the Word, and I have my daily devotional that I send you guys. So if it's too much, let me know. I'll stop sending it. But yeah, so I have my daily devotionals that I do, and I'll usually pray before in hopes that devotional will, it will will speak to me based on my prayer.
Mm.
And so that helps me
like that.
in regards to like how am I gonna attack my day spiritually?
Yeah.
Right? And then of course work comes in, all that starts happening. So but I like to start with prayer, getting in the Word, and my devotional.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about how you're getting outside of your comfort zone for the sake of the gospel.
This right here,
Yeah.
This is not my comfort zone at all.
Love it.
Very anxious before we start recording this.
Yeah.
Just for those of you that weren't here for that. But, really just leaning into faith, and doing those things that you're kind of called to do. I think spending that time in the morning with God through prayer, He you hear Him. Right?
Fills you up, right?
Fills me up and where I'm going. And so when the opportunity came for something such as this, it's like, oh, I have to do this. My very sweaty right now, very sweaty. But having that faith to develop the courage, because we can do all things in Christ who strengthens us, right? Philippians 4:13, and just leaning into that. And so it's not any one particular thing. It's just a number of different opportunities that come up, and then make sure to grab onto them.
Yeah. I love that. Grabbing onto opportunities. Now let me ask you specifically about the opportunity of sharing your faith with others. Are you taking ownership in that area and telling other people about the hope that you have in you, that Jesus has put in you?
So I work in outreach, like I mentioned before. Us working together, that direct connection with people with the purpose of supporting them where they're at.
Yeah.
Right? It's not always going to be about God. It's not always going to be about work. Shout out to Stephen Quick. It's going to be whatever it's going to be to where we can serve them where they are.
Yeah.
And so what I've found though is people are hungry for that. People are hungry for Jesus.
Yes.
And so if you're genuinely connecting with them in a manner that lets them know like it's okay to have that conversation, they come up naturally.
Yeah.
They come
I
up
find
naturally.
that to be true in my life as well. Like that. Start with serving people where they're at. I love that. And you develop that relationship with them. That hunger. That hunger comes because we're all hungry for Jesus, right? How has life been impacted since you took ownership? Like, how has your life changed since you started implementing those daily habits? You started getting outside of your comfort zone and having more conversations with people about Christ. How has that changed life overall?
The word I use to sum it up is blessings. Blessings. In every area too, not just spiritually, but socially, personally, financially. It's crazy in itself. If you're doing the right things, like there's no rhyme or reason behind some of my financial stuff that's going on.
It's all
There's
him,
only
right?
one
I've been there.
answer to that, and so just blessings have come out of the woodworks in ways I would have never expected, and it's actually one of the driving factors for me to keep pushing on, even through fear.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you have for somebody who's trying to grow in their faith?
The spiritual gifts workshop that we just did recently at Westside, it was really helpful for me because that was my second time going through it. The first time it led me to music, and it'll build off your passion in order you to find out where do you fit into the kingdom and how can we do that work, right? And so I found music. I ended up starting a production company, and I just started a band. We got a couple albums. And that was like the blessing that came from listening at that time. The second time we went through it recently, it was a different calling. Who knew leadership, huh? I had no idea. But even when I think about Raise Up Productions, the whole goal of that is just to raise people up from where they are to where they want to be. And a lot of the time we can do that by helping them find and follow Jesus. So now it's my passion that I've been homing in on is just leading people to Christ, specifically people that have a background similar to my own that wasn't necessarily growing up in the church. It's actually a very rough upbringing. And the way I like to say it, we talked about this, it's kind of funny, but we like to go into the jungle. And get the gorillas. We get the gorillas and we lead them to the Lord. So
love it.
So just finding where you fit in, homing in on that passion so that you can genuinely serve people and hopefully lead them to Christ.
Thank you for sharing that, AJ. I believe that's going to add a lot of value to people that are listening to this. And if you're listening guys, remember, it's a lot of it has to do with serving other people, putting other people before yourself, because that's what Jesus Christ did for us. That's what I took away from his message, essentially his story, what he's been through, and then identifying where you belong in that area by taking a spiritual gifts workshops, or maybe asking somebody in leadership that you know that knows you, that can speak to you and say, you know what, you probably belong over here, because a lot of times we don't see that. We don't see that we have leadership abilities, or for me, evangelistic abilities. We're the last ones to notice that gift. So I encourage you guys to plug in with people, get around that good association, and they'll help you. They'll make you better so that you can serve God better.